Hi everybody, Tara here. I'm one half of Grief Probate Journey. We started our blog in June 2019, and that was based off of experiences that we've gone through since our dad was hospitalized in September 2016, sadly passing away in March 2017. And since that time, we've been fortunate to be connected with many people. We've become engaged in a grief community within our social media networks. And through that, Pascale has reached out to us because she has worked with people related to grief and probate, as she has also walked this journey herself. Pascale is an awakening life coach and soul transformational healer. And so today we're just going to be speaking to her to find out a bit more about what she does. So Pascale, if that's okay, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to say, I think what Tara and her sister are doing with the grief probate journey is really lovely. And that we need more people like them out in the world spreading this message, because it takes a village and a tribe to be able to support everyone inside of this. I would say for me, this journey happened very personally for me. I also lost my husband unexpectedly and tragically in 2019 from a heart attack. It was in Hong Kong, which I'm originally born from, and half English, half Swiss. My mom's the lovely English part. Basically, everything just shifted in a moment. Everything just completely changed. And then basically, I had to walk my own personal journey through the grief, and also because my husband was only 49 at the time. So not old.
Yes, very young.
Yep, not old. We didn't have a will in place, and also we had intended to create that, but we had just got married, and a week and a half later he died.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, so basically everything happened very quickly, and then because there wasn't a will in place, then similar to Tara and her sister, basically it meant that this whole world of also probate kicked into the space, which as a 39-year-old woman, I had no clue about, knew nothing about, didn't know the world of any of that. And so, I then embarked on a journey, and that is embarked on a journey to get clarity on, what was going to need to happen, what was needed to be supported. And all of these things at the deepest and core of my being became a very big awakening. It meant that I had to really go through and sit with a lot of the emotions that it was bringing up, all kinds of different kinds of emotions, that, really a really big reshaping of my values, a reshaping of what I cared about, what I gave my time to, what was important to me. And prior to that happening, I had been an intuitive coach. And because I walked this journey of awakening, and really having to sit with some dark emotions that it brought up, and it brought all of the foundation of those things to the core, it meant that I was walking the journey of awakening to my higher self. And so the reason it became such an important mission for me was because I was seeing a lot of people go, and still now currently, going through grief and feeling very broken, feeling very despairing, feeling very like there's a big badge on them that they've got for their life, and a feeling of like, this is never ending, I'll never get to the end of this. And there was this, there's a real deep feeling of like, they didn't see the light, and they didn't see the hope, and they didn't see, what life could be on the other side of it. And so for me, it became a very important key piece to supporting people to awaken to their light. So walking through the shadows, walking through the darker, more tougher pieces of this, yet inside of a journey where their light is awakened, their soul is awakened, so that they can really then start to hear for themselves, why are they here? What is the reason for them being here? What lights their heart? Because all of these things, when you've lost someone, doesn't matter who it is in your life that's close to you, you start to realize life is very fragile.
Yeah, definitely.
And life is very impermanent. So the point is, because we only have a finite amount of time here, then we really want to be centered on what our passions are, what's our purpose, why are we here, what's our mission, what do I do in the morning or in my days that makes me fulfilled? Who do I want to be around? All these type of things. So, the outer trappings, I call it, of life that we've been programmed to believe are the big things in life, i.e. achievement, success, all these types of things, they all fall to the wayside when these type of things happen. And it really becomes, the smaller things, the things inside of our heart that matter, that bring joy in these moments. And so getting centered on what these things are, and what do people really, want, or who do they want to love in their life? What brings joy? All of these more inner qualities that we can actually have a say on, versus these other things that seem very outside of ourselves and almost unattainable, and create a life that we love. So my whole thing is about supporting people to create a life that they love, working through some processes, working through some individual sessions and ways and processes that enable people to hear themselves, be able to connect with themselves, be able to craft that life that they love. And it doesn't matter if it's coming from a place of, having gone through grief, having gone through loss, having gone through any kind of major life transition in your life, that, because this has happened, it doesn't mean that you're defined by it, and that you can't create a life again in your own way, in your own time. It's not pushing anything. It's just allowing you to know that it's possible again to have a new beginning and to be that beginning for yourself. Because the biggest thing you start to see when your loved ones are not here is that that's what they would want for you as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's really a lot of useful information, and everything that you've said is totally relatable, because, in these sorts of situations, you can lose yourself. You don't know who you are, what your purpose is, everything that, as you said, things that were important, they don't really matter anymore, and you can feel like you're just coexisting. And especially now in this time of the pandemic, it's like a loss of the life that we had before. It's not, necessarily just a loss of a person. So some people are experiencing triple losses, and then
right.
Yeah. And then also if they lose someone in this process, the way that they can, have a send-off for them is different because of all of the restrictions. So there's so many challenging things happening at the moment.
That's right. You're right. So this is the other thing that is happening. You're exactly right, Tara, is that the other effects of everything are compounded, because actually it can also occur, like there are multiple deaths or multiple griefs happening, whether it's like literally, because some people are losing more than one person at a time, or whether it's symbolically like the feeling of the restriction, the feeling of COVID, on top of then losing someone, you know, and I think both me and you are also impacted by that, because in my case, for me, there was also a loss and a grief at leaving Hong Kong. So even the place I knew was a death, because I'd lived there for 39 years of my life, you know. So it's a whole redefinition, and then coming here to England, and finding my feet, yet inside of a very different situation, because like you're saying, we're under COVID restrictions, and so we're not living life in a regular trajectory.
Yeah.
And so even with that, it means that we have to become very creative with how we also support each other. In fact, the need for connection becomes even more important because of this. And actually finding people, finding support resources, finding the kind of heart-centered, connected professional help by somebody who knows what you're walking and understands it to the T, in terms of like having personally walked that journey, and that has a deep commitment to supporting you around that, couldn't be more important.
Yes, definitely. It makes all the difference, because you can feel really alone. And like for us in our situation, we felt like when our dad passed away and everything that we were dealing with, we felt like disconnected from life. So, but we would try to still interact with family and friends by going out. But now with the social distancing, it's like it's reinforced the way that we felt about being isolated. And, you know, now we don't have that. So, you know, you can be really withdrawn. So it's important to just try and, you know, reach out to people and, you know, just be aware of your mental state of mind, because it's really important, even more so now. It's important anyway, but now in these trying times, it's really important.
Yeah, I agree, because the thing is that the loss or the grief could, like you say, bring up feelings, could totally bring up feelings of isolation as one area. And so then you've got COVID, it can feel like double isolation. So you're also dealing with isolation, you're dealing with grief. So these layers of withdrawal, or like the sense of kind of lack of connection, exactly, you the way through that is how do I create these connections, but in a way that feels authentic and feels right, not like you're trying to kind of push anything or do anything, but also just keeping the lines of communication open. And also, when you've had something that's happened like this, the other thing that happens is that you tend to also tend to connect with different types of people from having had this happen. So also it's being in that expanded awareness that your maybe old community is going to look different going through this, because, you know, you potentially are looking for people who also understand the journey you're walking. And so that may involve connections with new people that, you know, maybe they've gone through or going through some kind of loss or some kind of transition. You know, it's important to have those, develop those connections to also help the healing as well. So community around this is also very important, or to find that community is what I would say.
Yeah, that as well was very relatable, because like with my sister and I, when we decided to start our blog, we felt that we were doing something that was quite different and maybe not many people were doing from the angle that we were coming at, to try and share a story. But what has been surprising and very nice is that we've realized that there is a community of people that are going through this. So we've managed to connect with them, and, you know, we support each other. And this is something that, had we not decided to do this, we wouldn't have even been aware that you know, this community is there, because, you know, with grief, it can be quite a taboo subject. So it's almost like it's quite nice to know that even though it's unfortunate circumstances, there is a community of people that, you know, have the same sort of goal of trying to, you know, help others. And, you know, within that, you support yourself, because we're learning as well through this, because where people share with us, you know, it's given us an insight into how other people feel and deal with their grief. So when you reached out to us and, you know, you was explaining the way that you work, it just sounded really positive. And listening to the people that share their stories with us, it's very relatable to the things that they're going through. And that's why we felt it was, you know, a really good connection.
Yeah, I totally agree. What I love about you guys is you're just very real in what you're going through. And, you know, for me, that's very important. And also, you know, what I call, like, you know, your heart's in the right place. That's very clear to me it is. So we're very aligned on that, because I said I do everything with the heart and following the heart. So yeah, I completely agree. And supporting others to follow their heart that are going through all of this. Because like you said, the biggest parts that's also very hard to deal with is also this sense of deep, like being lost in the forest, and being so for me, isolation will come later, because you first initially, for a long part of it, you feel like you're almost on a boat in the middle of the ocean somewhere, dropped at sea, and you're like absolutely clueless as to what's even going on with yourself, let alone kind of what's going on with anyone else. So helping people when they feel so lost, because that part of the grief, I think, unless you've been through grief, I think people do not have an understanding of that piece. And that part is well, it just, when you're going through it, can feel very scary, because you don't really understand what's happening, what's going on, what's happening inside of yourself, you know. And so for me, that's also something I have as like also why it's important for people to feel supported, because that sense of feeling so lost in the forest, it's part of grief, and it's part of the journey all of us have to walk. Yet if you have a few signposts, if you have a few ways of, like, while the person's on the boat, you know, shooting a few you know, guidance points in the sky, it's going to have you feel like, oh, okay, I see, you know, along the way, that enables you to kind of just feel like you're not alone, even if you're in this mist, because some people describe it differently. Some it's like in a mist, sometimes it's like in a real forest, you know, sometimes at sea, that you'll know that you'll find your way back, you know, and the ability to do that sooner, rather than feeling like there isn't any option, so therefore I'm just going to stay here lost, you know, type of thing. So and I do agree with you that on some level grief is a taboo topic. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me that's been interesting is the fact that this has happened in my midlife. Had this happened when I was, I don't know, 60, 70, it would be more, I guess, accepted, because people know that that type of thing happens. Yet the other thing that I do notice is that because this has happened the way it's happened collectively in the world, as just this massive collective grief outpouring, it is actually also turning the leaf on that conversation, because all different sizes, shapes, ages, you know, are dying, you know, at one time. And so now it's a conversation. In the past that maybe people were prepared to deny or prepared to ignore, now it's not something that they can, because, you know, we're living in a time where, you know, we get like grief, we get like death updates about how many people are dying every day. and those for me, those statistics cannot be statistics. For me, those are lives.
Yeah.
You know, that's the real truth. Those are lives. Like, you know, not just in England looking at the numbers, but, you know, in other countries, when you know, and then they do a tally, it's like, okay, that's, you know, those are real lives that are being lost. And those are all the ripple effects of, you know, personal lives, personal families, personal connections that are all impacted. So we are now in a big collective conversation around grief, that also opens the door for people to now, like, have to look at this, you know, because it's all around us in many ways. It is our individual experience, but it is also our collective experience now. And so the journey around that, to step up and support each other, is much bigger and much more fundamental, because every day more and more new people are pouring into the conversation around this. And so I think it's also about getting good information and good support when that's happening, because that can also feel very overwhelming, because it's happening on such a big level too. It can make you feel like, oh, okay, what, you know, like, on the one hand, it means that people can, if they put their hands up and say this is going on, they can, you know, start to sort of find a way through. Yet on another level, it might make them feel quite overwhelmed that so many people also like dealing with all this grief. It can also feel a little bit disconcerting, because you're also seeing like, oh, this is happening to that person, this is happening to her, you know, and then you're kind of feeling like, wow, so many people going through this at the same time. So it's also about it. So there's this balance of kind of embracing the individual experience that you're going through with the collective experience, and then not feeling overwhelmed about what's happening there, but just kind of navigating in your own individual way, with your own steps, with your own guidance. You know, listening inward is so important in these times. It's just fundamental.
Definitely, indeed. So just wanted to ask, like, for people that are listening, how they can find the services that you offer, like, you know, your media platforms and things like that.
Yeah, okay. So so there's a range of different ways that you can find me and access me. So I have a Instagram page, so you can find me at Intuity World on Instagram. And then I have a Facebook page too, where people come and I talk about all these different types of topics. I bring them to the fore. People can ask questions, can engage, can find me, can hear interviews I've done on different topics. And there are different resources that they may want. They can hear from different people's experiences having worked with me. So I have on Facebook, I'm also at Intuity World there as well. And so my company is called Intuity World. I think that's the important thing to say. And then basically, I also offer online workshops because of this time. So because of this, you know, in-person piece being taken away, I'm also a transformational facilitator. So why that's so important, especially now, is also working with the group dynamic around processing grief, processing the loss, processing the emotions. When this kind of traumatic and kind of complicated grief that's happening for many people, what's showing up is people are not being able to get complete and not be able to process their feelings, process the loss, process saying goodbye, process honoring the person, or being able to sacredly honor their relationship with that person. We have to really balance the conversation of the things we have to handle around the grief and take care of around the grief with our internal feelings about it, and so sometimes, so what happened for me was I didn't really feel that there was a certain resource around processing that. And so at the time, for my own personal processing, I came up with a process called the goodbye process. And so it's a goodbye and welcome in. And so I did it inside of really, coming to terms with the loss of my husband, and all the different dreams that wouldn't come to pass anymore, all the things that inside of a relationship that had died a death, not just his physicality, but his presence in my life, and putting that into a sacred process felt very honoring, and felt very connecting with him, felt very like I was getting to a different place inside of myself, instead of it all being stuck inside of me. I was able to process it, letting it go, and then it's layered, because you can take it deeper and do it on other things. So saying goodbye, and offering that came about from my own personal experience. And then I had some friends that said, "Oh, did you create this?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, I think it's something that you should really, share with others and create doing that." And I went, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah." And I went, "Okay, well, when I feel ready to do that, I will." And then this kind of other piece that came about when I was saying goodbye. What was then happening was there was an opportunity to then welcome something new, and like a new beginning, and that felt very lovely and felt very organic. And so then I thought, okay, why don't I offer this to people virtually? Because the other thing that's happening is, in the pandemic, and I'm seeing that a lot, is, there's a whole sense of, oh, once we open up again, you'll be able to do again. Well, for a lot of people, that's like, how many months later, a year later, and they're just sitting with all of this, it's like, no, that doesn't work. That's just not, it's not being emotionally responsible, because all those things that are just festering and staying stuck, that of the trauma of the loss is getting kept in your cells, is kept in your tissues, and that could create all sorts of other problems, like fatigue, confusion, lethargy, loss of appetite or over appetite, all these other other things that you're getting because, knock-on effects, because of the lack of processing and the lack of being able to connect. For some, it's made them feel very numb and made them feel very disassociated, like they've gone in their shell. For other people, it's just this overwhelming sense of having just so many emotions. Like, what do I do with this? I just don't even know, so some of them can't even verbalize it. They can't speak it. So the processes enable people to be themselves, yet be witnessed and held in a group situation where they're taken in a safe process. And I'm able to offer the same level of care and support and transformation and breakthrough that I would be able to offer if I saw them face to face, because I still work with the fire, so everyone is able to actually burn it. There's a very cool part where they actually get to burn their the goodbyes, and have an experiential experience. This is the other thing. It's one thing to read about a lot of things, gain a lot of knowledge, but emotion needs to be shifted.
Yeah.
And it needs to be created. And how do you do that? Is through experiencing it and feeling it and going through it. And then it takes you to another place, and then you start to see, oh, okay. And then, you know, and then that emotion gets lifted, and you start to feel like, oh, I can do this. It just makes you feel like, you know, maybe the burden or the guilt, because there's all these underlying emotions that come on top of the other emotions, get lifted. And, you know, there's hope, and there's a feeling of like, okay, you know, like, that's good. I feel like, you know, I can move through this, and gets you to then start to realize the importance of experiencing things and doing more of that, because it gets you out of your head. There's this kind of lockdown scenario, you know, it's creating this over rumination, I call it, you know, so much overthinking, and we're too much in the brain, and it's not good for us. We need to get in our body. We need to get into our sensations and our feelings, because anything we can touch, feel, smell, you know, the grief thing that happens is it kind of, it takes you away, you know, it takes you very away from everything. Because everything feels sometimes a little surreal, like, is this really happening? And so anything that gets you feeling intangible reality is a good thing, you know. But when this is happening to you, if you're alone, if you don't have, you know, the guidance, it can be very, it can make you feel like you're not sure what to do. You know, you're really not sure what to do. So, so there's also the opportunity to work with me individually in a tailored way on your unique issues, because sometimes that's not something you want to share privately. It might be something depending on what you're going through in your own unique way. I handle that privately. And then there's the people that I know, you know, I'll just know too anyway, when you come to me, depending what is you're sharing, I might think, oh, that's a group process will be very good for you to do. And sometimes people do a combination of both, because you get different things from the individual experience, and then you get different things when you do it in a collective experience as well. So both are very important solutions, I guess you could say, right now, and offerings that both of them are applicable. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. You know, as I said, when you reached out to us, we did feel that it was a good connection, and that, you know, it's something that could work with the people that share their stories with us, because those are quite relatable as well. So I'm glad that we've finally been able to, you know, get something going so that we can share it with them, so that, you know, they can get to know a bit more about you. I just wanted to know if you have any like parting words or anything else you'd like to say.
I think the main thing I would say is that even if things feel quite tough right now, and even if things feel like you just can't see the way, and you don't know which way to go or which way to turn, just take the next step. Just take the next step. Don't think about the whole mountain. We can't do that when you're going through grief. Don't think about the whole mountain. Don't think about the whole process ahead of you, or whatever it is that, you know, you're holding. It's just too much. So just be gentle with yourself, and how you're gentle with yourself is to just take the next step that feels right. And by you doing that, each time you take the next step, the next piece of or thing you know that comes to you, or feels right to handle, will just present itself. So just trust that, and know that even if it feels like you're nowhere near where you think you should be, there isn't any place you need to be other than where you are right now.
Yeah. Okay. That's really, really good inspirational words. So, I'd like to say thank you very much, Pascale. As Pascale said, you can find her at Intuity World on Facebook and Instagram, and Intuity World is the business that she has. So thank you very much. And yeah, we hope that you found this useful and informative and inspirational, as I have. I've enjoyed this interview. I hope that it's been okay for you as well.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been good, Tara. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks.